This time I'll call to order the Tuesday, November 15th, 2016 meeting of the Iredell County Board of Commissioners. At this time, if you'll please bow your head for a moment of silent prayer. At this time, prior to reciting the Pledge of Allegiance, I'd like to recognize Troop 157 from the Boy Scouts of America and ask Commissioner Robertson if he could further introduce you and set up the Pledge of Allegiance.
Certainly, Mr. Chairman, it's my honor and privilege to introduce some of the Scouts and Scout leaders of Troop 157 in Mooresville, North Carolina. The Scouts who are in attendance with us tonight are David Bellingham, Caleb Tyler, Troy Isaacson, Xander Corden, Sterling Williams, Stokes Hare, Caleb Harmon, Zane Corden, Ryan Smith, Dylan Cottrell, Cade Baltich, Landon Williams, Austin Henson, and Caleb White. And accompanying them are Scout leaders Jesse Walker, Fred Smith, and Fred Harmon. And at this time, I'll ask the Scouts from Troop 157 if they'll please come forward and lead our meeting in the Pledge to the Flag.
Everyone will please rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We want to thank the leadership and the members of Troop 157 for attending this evening and for assisting us in kicking off with the Pledge of Allegiance. I don't believe that there are any adjustments to the agenda other than maybe a technical correction.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Under announcement of vacancies occurring on boards and commissions for the Board of Health, there are 7 announcements instead of 1.
Okay, so noted. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as corrected?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Motion from Commissioner Johnson. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, like sign. Motion carries unanimously. Before we get into item 5, which is a presentation of special recognitions and awards, I'd like to share a couple of things. First of all, as you know, 3 commissioners were up for election this election cycle. Every 2 years, 3 of the 5 commissioners run. The top 2 vote getters get a 4-year term. The third vote getter gets a 2-year term. That way, you always have a majority of the commissioners before the people in any given election cycle. And I do want to recognize that Sitting Commissioner Tommy Bowles will be returning for a 4-year term. And in the audience this evening, we have Commissioner-elect Jeff McNeely, who will be joining the Commission for a 4-year term, and Commissioner-elect Gene Haupt, who will be joining the Commission for a 2-year term. So congratulations to all of you, and we look forward to welcome you aboard the first Monday of December in the morning at 10 o'clock. We will have the last meeting of this board to wind up business. At 10:30, we will swear in the new board, and at 11 o'clock, we will have an organizational meeting of the new board and adjourn quickly thereafter. Because those are fairly routine administrative tasks this evening, we are going to take the opportunity and the time that we have to farewell 2 sitting commissioners who, between the 2 of them, have 34 years of collective experience sitting on this board. It is a huge amount of institutional knowledge that Ken Robertson and Steve Johnson have between the 2 of them. They will be missed. Their insights, and it's hard to figure out where you're going unless you know where you've been. And both of these gentlemen have been in the saddle for a considerable length of time and are always able to give a backstory to any event, whether it's a zoning issue that they have remembered, well, that's been before us before, or some permutation or combination of it, as well as just sharing with all of us their collective experience and insights. So we will be farewelling them this evening, and to begin that process, we have adopted 2 resolutions in appreciation for both Commissioner Johnson and Commissioner Robertson. And at this time, I would like to, well, before I get into that, let me just mention that we do have some personnel from Iredell County fire departments and volunteer fire departments that have been deployed out to the western area of the state to help with the fires that are in the Lake Lure area. And I just want to share with you the extent to which our volunteer fire services have responded to needs within our state. On November 10th, an engine and 4 personnel from both Shepherds and South Iredell deployed. They returned on the 11th. On the 11th of November, an engine with 4 personnel from Mooresville deployed, and they will switch out personnel on Wednesday and stay deployed until Saturday. On the 12th of November, an engine with 4 personnel from Troutman Statesville deployed, and they are still in service. On the 13th of November, an engine with 4 personnel from Harmony deployed, and they returned on the 14th, yesterday. And on the 14th, a brush truck with 4 personnel from Harmony Trinity left, and I'm not sure when they'll be getting back. But I just wanted to highlight that those volunteers and professional firefighters, and I should say this, they're all professional firefighters. Some are part-time, some are volunteer, some are full-time. They're held to the same standards, and they're taking their time to assist those in the western part of the state that are under considerable stress. I know I drove down from Nashville on Sunday, and the Smoky Mountains was truly the Smoky Mountains. and particularly when you went down Highway 26 and you could, where the Lake Lure exit is, it was pretty significant. And I'm given to understand that the smoke's already in Alexander County, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So please keep these volunteers and firefighters in your prayers as they are fighting a series of fires that are pretty unpredictable in terms of how they're spreading through the mountains. Okay. Back to our farewelling process. These two resolutions have already been adopted, and I will now read them into the record. First, for Commissioner Robertson. A resolution of appreciation to Kenneth M. Robertson, Jr. Whereas Kenneth M. Robertson, Jr., better known as Ken, is completing an extraordinary and honorable 12-year tenure from 2004 through 2016 as a member of the Iredell County Board of Commissioners. And whereas Ken Robertson moved to Iredell County in 1982 after graduating from Clemson University with a degree in chemical engineering, Ken's demanding career in business has taken him throughout North and Central and South America, while simultaneously serving in the United States Army Reserve for over 22 years, ultimately commanding a battalion and retiring as a lieutenant colonel. And whereas Ken Robertson has served on many community and civic clubs and organizations such as the Centralina Council of Governments Board of Delegates, the Centralina Workforce Development Board, the Cooperative Extension Service Advisory Council, the Courts and Jail Facilities Task Force, Mooresville South Iredell Economic Development Corporation, Iredell County Board of Health, Criminal Justice Partnership Program, North Carolina Human Relations Commission, Farmland Preservation Board, and Assistant Scoutmaster of Troop 171 of the Boy Scouts of America. And whereas Ken Robertson may best be known for his passion for Iredell County's agricultural history, the sustainability of profitable farms, encouraging the younger generation to remain engaged in family farming operations and developing agribusiness. He participated in the Duke Energy relicensing project and recognized the critical protection of the Catawba River Basin as the demands for water increased. Ken is passionate about educating the public on the many facets of county services and encouraged employees to tell their story. And whereas Ken Robertson has encouraged and supported the recruitment of industry to improve job opportunities throughout Iredell County and worked with the boards of education and Mitchell Community College to ensure workforce development and support of local businesses, Ken's dedication to providing effective services for the benefit of Iredell County citizens has been demonstrated, along with other members of the board, through the joint accomplishments of the building of the Iredell County Public Library, the new building for the Department of Social Services, expansion of Government Center South, the new building for Department of Social, the purchase of land for future solid waste needs, the new animal shelter, and additional EMS bases and fire departments, all the while closely monitoring finances to maintain a healthy fund balance, which in turn has given Iredell County excellent financial ratings, and for the insight to, quote-unquote, squirrel money away for the jail expansion and new public safety complex without incurring debt. And whereas Ken Robertson has always been willing to examine an idea from all perspectives and to ensure that a decision is made taking all of the potential outcomes into consideration. Ken's desire to see youth engaged in civic duties and responsibilities has been manifest in many forms and is especially evident by the warm greeting he gives Boy Scouts who are present to lead the Pledge of Allegiance. And whereas, as a dedicated husband and father to two sons, Ken Robertson has sacrificed his family and farming time to serve the citizens of Iredell County for 3 4-year terms on the Board of Commissioners, where he has helped to shape many of the current and future leaders of Iredell County. His guidance and keen wit on the board will be missed, but we hope and trust that Iredell County will continue to benefit from his insights and knowledge for years to come. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the Iredell County Board of Commissioners and staff hereby express to Kenneth M. Robertson, Jr. their sincere appreciation and deep gratitude for his devotion and dedicated service to the citizens of Iredell County. Adopted this 15th day of November, 2016. Ken? The floor is now Commissioner Robertson's.
After spending 12 years, I've got a couple of things to say. Mr. Chairman, thank you for giving me the opportunity to make some parting remarks. First, I'd like to begin by thanking the voters of Iredell County for giving me the honor and the privilege to serve as one of your commissioners for the past 12 years. Our county is large and its population diverse across many demographic categories. Meeting you, the citizens, and working with you has been an honor. I want to thank you for your votes and the confidence that you've placed in me for these 12 years. I need to formally thank a lot of individuals and groups of individuals. Mixed in that bag, I'm going to include a few regrets and a couple of apologies. First, I'd like to thank my family. My sons, Ken and Alan, will both have to watch this on the website. My oldest son, Ken, is currently serving our nation in the Army as a field artillery officer in Korea as we speak. Alan is a senior at Clemson, and he will enter the Army this coming May as a second lieutenant. Both of my boys grew up being the sons of a Republican Party chairman or a county commissioner. In most of those years, I was a single dad. They had to adjust to a father who spent time as an elected official, and that meant that there was less time for them. They attended official dinners and most political functions with me, and that often meant that they were the last ones to leave. And on election days, when their peers had the day off, they spent the day campaigning outside of polling places from the opening until the closing. Recently, my wife Susan has gotten to experience life with a political figure in the house, and unlike the boys, she hates politics. It's not easy. In politics, elected officials and candidates expect to be judged, and sometimes judged harshly. And that comes with the turf. My sons and my wife always understood when someone agreed with policy, and even got angry about policy, and that was to be expected. But when the criticism was nasty and intentionally personal, in an effort to simply change policy, that was when my family members paid the emotional price. I've seen how devastating it was to my sons in particular, who had to listen to their dad have his character assaulted either in the press or on the radio or on TV, and then be told, just let it go. The first casualty with anonymity is civility. So Susan and Ken and Alan, thanks for sticking with me in the good times and the bad, and you know I love you too much. Now, I must acknowledge that this was an exceptionally well-run county long before I came on this board. Joel Mashburn was a great county manager who understood his role and helped me to understand mine. The previous boards of commissioners had a long history of being frugal. When I first ran for this office, I remember running and saying that I would cut government waste. And in hindsight, that must have seemed offensive to all the commissioners and the county department heads who had watched the budget so closely for so many years. Iredell County was not run like the state government in Raleigh, and it was not run like the federal government in Washington, D.C. Shortly after I took office, I fully realized that all those good local Republicans that I had helped elect for the previous 2 decades had actually done a superb job. This county was well served under the leadership of previous chairman and vice chairman like Sarah Tice and Steve Johnson, Marvin Norman, Larry Hedrick, R.B. Sloan, and one of my personal heroes, Chandler Bryan. Sarah Tice was the chairwoman when I first came on the board. So she had the unfortunate responsibility to deal with a new commissioner who was still learning what he had the authority to do and not to do, and learning how to get things done in a way that is easy as opposed to a way that is hard and, to be frank with you, does not work. I made every rookie mistake in the book, and poor old Sarah had to deal with it. So Sarah, if you're listening tonight, I'm sorry, and I thank you for your guidance and your patience. I've learned something from every commissioner who served at the same time with me. The reason we have 5 commissioners instead of 1 is so that multiple opinions and viewpoints can be considered before a decision is made. With precious few exceptions, I always understood and appreciated the opposing opinion when one of my colleagues disagreed with me. Even when we disagreed, I knew their side had some very valid points. Some of our best decisions as a board came about when we modified what could have been a 3-2 vote and made it a 5-0 vote. And if you'll allow me, I'd like to start to my left and make some comments. During my entire time on this board, Mr. Pope has been our legal advisor. In the past few years, Lisa Valdez has played a larger role as well. During that entire time, Mr. Pope and Ms. Valdez always gave great advice that protected the county, county employees, and our board. Often in closed session, he bore bad news that we did not want to hear because of laws and rulings and regulations and litigation outside of our control. He had to patiently sit there and listen to commissioners like me vent, rant, rave, ramble, and complain about how things were unfair, wrong, or just plain stupid. He took it all in stride, but his advice and his opinion never wavered. He dispensed wise counsel formed from his logic, his wisdom, and his incredible experience. Our confidence in him was and is unanimous. Few legal teams have earned such respect from so many for so long. Tommy Bowles has been a great commissioner, and he'll continue to be a great commissioner. His experience in the fire services and in his personal automotive business give him a level of technical expertise that I always valued. Tommy is a man of faith with a servant's heart. He helped me when I first ran for office, and I'll never forget that. I am pleased he was reelected, and I'm confident our county will benefit from his continued service. Tommy approaches his role with humor and a smile, and he always made work fun, and that's something we should all try to do. And on a very personal level, I'll miss that the most, Tommy. Steve Johnson has served our county well in leadership positions and as a commissioner for a very long time. He is well known for the amount of time that he spends working for the issues and causes dear to his heart. Before I came on the board, he met with me and gave me some of the best practical and best political advice I ever received. If only I had been wise enough to follow it. It was Steve who told me, if Susan Blumenstein says you can do something, you can, and if she says you can't do something, you can't. And boy, wasn't that the truth. By virtue of his public accessibility due to his full-time job, his parts store became everything from the county complaint desk to the special request department. The time he spent on county business has been enormous, and few will ever match that level of devotion. His legacy of time and commitment will be surpassed by few. Steve is an avid student of history and Austrian economics. His opinions during our 7 o'clock meetings were often accompanied by an economics lesson, so I'm sure that if he misses being a commissioner, maybe he can fill the void by becoming an economics teacher in one of the public schools. And folks, General Mallory spent a lifetime leading soldiers for our nation. And in Iredell County, we're now blessed that he has devoted himself to being a commissioner. He's a visionary leader who definitely looks over the horizon. He takes a different approach than most political leaders in that he makes sure that we use an inclusive process when formulating plans and policies and positions. It is slower and it's sometimes more difficult than just moving ahead with what we already know. But it is a good and deliberate process. During my life, he has been a mentor to me, an inspirational leader, and a role model. During his time as our chairman, I believe many of our citizens have come to appreciate his leadership qualities and devotion to duty. General Mallory, I will miss serving under your leadership as a soldier and as a commissioner. Marvin Norman. Marvin is probably the least vocal on this board. And the truth is that he seldom has a chance to talk because the rest of us are always running our mouths. If you listen long enough, you'll realize that Marvin is the human soul of this board. So many times when this board got wrapped up in numbers and budgets, it was Marvin that reminded us of the human component involved. And in that regards, we always had to do what was right for the citizens and for the county employees. When Marvin spoke, we all listened, and we all knew we better pay attention to what was being said. During one debate in particular, we were all going back and forth over whether to cut something out of the budget that would have affected a lot of people and a lot of children. Everybody was saying their piece, and Marvin was kind of silent. And then he just said, "We're not going to do that." And the debate was over. We just got quiet, and then we moved on to the next topic. That is an example of the respect that we have for his character and the powerful influence that he has on this board. When people ask me what is the best thing I did while serving as a county commissioner, I tell them there were two things. And these are two things that we almost never talk about as far as decisions. The most important decision we made, and we did it several times, was to acquire land so that our solid waste facility will have capacity to expand for decades to come, thus relieving future boards and future generations from having to go through the painful and divisive process to establish a new landfill somewhere else in this county. The second best decision I helped to make was to hire Ron Smith as our county manager. Ron is a strong leader who works well with his own leadership team, with the employees and the public and our board. He's adopted our priorities as his own, and he advises when appropriate and executes once a decision is made. Ron, too, is a visionary leader. So many communities are in constant turmoil and become dysfunctional because they selected a poor manager to handle daily operations of their county. We are indeed fortunate Ron is our county manager, and our future boards will be wise to make sure that he stays. Retha Gaither has made it a personal mission to help our board in every way possible. She's friendly, she's competent, she makes work fun, and her desserts are irresistible. There are a few more people I'd like to thank. Anna Bonham served as Secretary of the Republican Party for almost 20 years. She was my campaign manager in every election and a tireless worker for a multitude of conservative candidates. She now serves as a member of the school board and is an example of someone who devoted her entire life to helping other people. I was fortunate to be one of those people she helped, and I give her most of the credit or blame for getting me into this chair. On behalf of our county, I'd like to thank Statesville City Councilman Michael Johnson for representing all of Iredell County, not just Statesville, while he took on leadership roles at both the Central Carolina Transportation Planning Organization and the Central Carolina Council of Government. It's a lot of thankless work that is important to us all. He does it without local recognition, but hopefully now with a little appreciation. Michael, thank you. And on behalf of the county, I'd also like to thank Mayor Miles Atkins for his personal initiative and leadership to connect our public schools, our community college, and our employers in an effort to make certain that we're making every educational opportunity available for students to prepare themselves for good-paying jobs that are available today in Iredell County. He's taken on this cause without regards to municipal borders and sought no personal recognition in the process. We all have benefited, and I want to publicly recognize what a positive difference that Miles Atkins is making. Last but not least, I want to thank all the employees of Iredell County. When I first ran for office, I had a mental picture of a county employee, a stereotypical bureaucrat pushing useless paper from one side of their desk to another. And I have never been so wrong in all of my life. Every time we commissioned a study to compare Iredell County employees and departments with county employees of neighboring or like-sized counties, our employees were more productive by any metric quantified, and they did it for less pay every single time. There was not a single study that showed any other county had more productive employees than Iredell County. I'm going to say it again because people need to hear that. During my 12 years, we never commissioned a study where they determined that another county had employees that worked in a more efficient manner. That's incredible. Our employees are often blamed for implementing or enforcing standards written by state and federal mandates and legislation, which give them no room for latitude, and they're just doing their job. And I noticed something else about a vast majority of our county employees. They volunteer outside their jobs. I see them in volunteer fire departments, rescue squads, charities, Little League coaches, school volunteers, and in scouting. They're the ones who set out the chairs at church functions and then get stuck putting away the tables when it's over. These are people with a heart for public service. You made me proud, and it was my honor to be on your team. Our county department heads almost always underspent their budgets with the monies returned going into our fund balance. These savings led to improved bond ratings and an ability to pay cash for some pretty big projects. So while county commissioners did play a role in saving for the future, our county department heads and their employees were the ones who actually made it happen. They don't get much credit for that, but the credit belongs to them, and it is a confirmation that Iredell County has a superb leadership team. I'd like to comment briefly on our two incoming board members. I'm pleased they were both elected. Jeff McNeely brings a wealth of experience from his years on the planning board and his involvement with the agricultural community. Gene Haupt brings emergency services experience, plus some experience from his time as commissioner. Whatever void is left by Steve and myself will be quickly filled by these two gentlemen, probably faster than Stephen and I would like to believe, but that's a good thing. I have one great disappointment from my time on this board. For years, the county commissioners publicly humbled ourselves before our Creator and prayed for His guidance and thanked Him for our blessings before we opened every meeting. Then, due to a lawsuit by an extreme minority, our courts essentially removed that time of prayer from our board. Under advice from legal counsel, we initially modified our prayer and then finally stopped the opening prayer altogether. We could not afford to subject our citizens to the tremendous cost of defending our actions in a prolonged lawsuit that had already been settled. So while that decision was a prudent financial one, I will always have regret that it was on my watch that this travesty occurred. I do not know what I will say on Judgment Day if I'm asked why I denied him. And I have great resentment for the judges who have denied us the opportunity to be public role models and serve as examples that we should all ask God for guidance. I have resentment for the judges who denied the public the right to pray in public for the safety of our student athletes prior to a sporting event. I can only hope that we will have a Supreme Court that will right this terrible wrong. The challenges of a commissioner are the same leaving as when I first took oath. The next board will seek to find the delicate balance between taking money from the taxpayer in order to properly fund the many legitimate roles and responsibilities of county government. None of us deny that we would be safer with more policemen, or our schools could better serve the children if they too had more resources. And future boards will try to do these things while respecting the expectation that the taxpayer wants to keep as much of the fruits of his own labor as possible. Funding education doesn't mean you aren't conservative, and denying an education request doesn't mean you hate kids. It's all a balancing act in a very dynamic environment. It is no easy task. I do not envy future boards during zoning cases where two different zoning designations border one another. There's always a winner and a loser, and I never went home feeling good after one of those votes. I will not miss that part of this job. The future can be very bright for Iredell County. We still have a great low tax rate. We have superior public and charter schools. We have a great community college. We have plenty of water and a good workforce. Our county staff is well led. I hope I have left our county a little better than when I found it. And it was my honor to be a part of this effort. And in closing, the movie The Replacements was about an NFL, about a team that, during an NFL strike, and they hired a bunch of replacements for the regular players. Gene Hackman was a coach, and he said, when the game is on the line, the winner wants the ball. And as I contemplated stepping down from being a county commissioner, I thought about how similar this decision was when I was thinking about retiring from the Army, and I struggled terribly with that decision, and I called my late father, who had great wisdom and was an incredibly smart man. And I told him I knew it was time to retire, but I just couldn't bring myself to do it. And he said, "How long have you served?" And I said, 22 years. And he said, "If that's long enough, how long is?" And I couldn't answer him. And he said, "Well, I guess that's your answer. 22 years is long enough." The voters gave me the ball 12 years ago, and for the second time in my life, I'm going to give it back. And that's what we do sometimes. We serve, and then we pass it on and let someone else carry the ball. So now, I get to pursue the most important desire in my life. Tonight I will get to go home and enjoy being married to Susan, and that's a good thing. May God bless the Board of Commissioners, and may God bless the citizens of Iredell County. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ken. And now we move on to a resolution of appreciation to Stephen D. Johnson. Whereas Stephen D. Johnson, better known as Steve, has completed an extraordinary and honorable 22-year tenure as a member of the Iredell County Board of Commissioners, and whereas Steve Johnson moved from Anderson, South Carolina to Iredell County in the early 1980s, where he began a successful career as an owner and operator of Johnson Parts and Supplies, while also being a husband, father, and recently pappy to granddaughter Grace. And whereas Steve Johnson has dedicated his political career to the citizens of Iredell County as a member of the Iredell County Board of Commissioners beginning in 1994 to the present, totaling 22 years of service, and serving as vice chairman for 6 terms from 1996 to 2001, and April 2010 to December 2010, and 6 terms as chairman from 2002 to 2004 and 2010 to 2014. And whereas Steve Johnson has served on many community and civic clubs and organizations to include the Board of Health, Statesville Airport Commission, South Iredell Community Development Corporation, School Facilities Task Force, Fire Department Planning Committee, Courts and Jails Facilities Committee, the Central Iowa Council of Governments, Statesville Regional Development, Welfare Reform Committee, Partners Behavioral Health, Juvenile Crime Prevention Council, and the Fairgrounds Capital Improvement Committee, just to name a few. And whereas Steve Johnson has been generous and forthcoming in sharing his passion and wisdom on the economy and political issues, not only for Iredell County, but for the state and the nation, frequently citing in support of his position the Founding Fathers, Adam Smith's The Wealth of Nations, Montesquieu's The Spirit of Laws, and de Tocqueville's Democracy in America. However, Steve may best be known for sharing his homespun economic and political insights, better known as Johnsonisms, most of which can be found recorded for posterity in the minutes of the board. One quote in particular sums up Steve's philosophy on the power of taxation. That is, quote, "I've always said taxes are like these young men who come courting my daughter. Some are less offensive than others, but I'm not especially fond of any of them." Unquote. And whereas Steve Johnson has encouraged and supported the recruitment of industry to improve job opportunities throughout Iredell County, and has worked diligently to encourage site-ready locations, especially working to leverage the Statesville Airport as a county-wide economic asset. His dedication to Iredell County has been proven, along with other members of the board, through the joint accomplishments of the new public library, the new building for the Department of Social Services, land purchases for future solid waste needs, the new animal shelter, closely monitoring finances to maintain a healthy fund balance, which in turn has helped Iredell County to achieve excellent financial ratings, and for the insight to, quote-unquote, squirrel money away for the jail expansion and a new public service building without going into debt. And whereas Steve Johnson is also known for a few missteps along the way, such as needing a fellow board member to pull him from a creek after falling in and splitting his pants, and for remaining a loyal fan of the Denver Broncos in the 2016 Super Bowl against the Carolina Panthers. And whereas Steve Johnson has helped to shape many of the current and future leaders of Iredell County through his sound advice, willingness to encourage and mentor employees, and thoughtfulness to all. His guidance on the board will be missed, but we hope and trust that Iredell County will continue to benefit from his insights and knowledge for years to come. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the Iredell County Board of Commissioners and staff hereby express to Stephen D. Johnson their sincere appreciation and deep gratitude for his devotion and dedicated service to the citizens of Iredell County. Adopted this 15th day of November, 2016. Reflect appreciation of 22 years of service in Iredell County Board of Commissioners. And the floor is yours.
Thank you, sir. I guess in this last year on the board, since I announced that I wasn't going to run again, I guess I've said the word I've used the most often is thankful. And I do have so many people to be thankful to. I first have to say, first I want to thank the Lord for giving me the strength to do it. I want to thank Him for giving me the wisdom to do it. I want to thank my wife, Susan. It was over 4 decades ago I looked up from dissecting a frog in biology class, and I thought I saw the prettiest thing I'd ever seen in my life. And I was good friends with a guy from Statesville, Gordon Johnson. Gordon's a heck of a nice guy, but he was an idiot. I said, Gordo, I said, who's the baby doll over there at 2 o'clock? He looked at his watch. I said, no, you moron, right over there. He said, who? I said, the girl, you know, she looks pretty good in a sweater, Gordo. Who is that girl? He said, that's Susan McNeely. He said, you'll never get a date with her. And I said, well, you hadn't seen my mojo work, big boy. And I went over there, and she shot me down. But I didn't give up. And ours was kind of an on-again, off-again thing. And a few years later, I talked her into marrying me. She talked me into coming to Statesville in 1981. And wasn't long after that, she gave me one of the greatest blessings in my life, my daughter Caroline. And there's never been a day I was not proud of her, and I'm so thankful for her. I've learned so much from Joel Mashburn. Everybody up here, I'm so indebted to. I see the staff out there. I have so many times they've encouraged me when things were hard. I won't get into my Austrian economic pontifications this evening, other than to say good economics is bad politics, and good politics is bad economics, and I'll leave it at that. I thought that rather than tell you how thankful that I was, on the eve of Thanksgiving, Mr. Chairman, if I might, just to provide what I think is probably one of the most sincere examples of Thanksgiving, if I may. And it is, I am a student of history and have been for 40 decades. My mother was an avid reader. We were told we were going to the library every Tuesday, and we were told we were going to check out a book, and we were told that book was going to be read by the following Tuesday. She did give me a profound love for reading. It's still my hobby. I wonder if I could share with you just a few notes I read from William Bradford and Pastor John Robertson. On the eve of Thanksgiving, if we truly want to be thankful, and these are the folks that I want to emulate in terms of being thankful. And we all owe them a great debt of thanks. You see, folks, the Church of England was presided over by the House of Bishops. They had grown increasingly alarmed at the growth of 2 groups of fanatics. First and much larger group claimed to be dedicated to purifying the church within. The bishops sarcastically called them Puritans. The Puritans at least continued to acknowledge canonical authority. The second group was far more dangerous. These radicals believed the Church of England was already corrupted beyond any possibility of purification. Moreover, they believed that the church could only be under the headship of Jesus Christ. The Queen was not the head of the church. They were separatists because they chose to separate themselves from the church. Their services were reduced to worship and primitive preaching, teaching, singing, and free praying, and departed from 16 centuries of established liturgical tradition. At this time, there were probably fewer than 1,000 of this group. However, if this was tolerated, other believers who spoke of a personal encounter with Christ might follow their lead. Elizabeth refused to give the bishops their free hand to stop this contagion before it got out of hand. She thought a few executions for heresy were sufficient to keep the movement in check. But soon the vain, petty, and manipulable James I came to the throne, and the bishops had their way. Separatists were hounded, bullied, forced to pay assessments to the Church of England. They were imprisoned and forced to go underground. They met in private homes, arrived by staggered intervals by different routes. Persecution reached the point that they sought religious asylum in Holland. Many of you have been taught in schools that the Pilgrims came here first for religious freedom. That is not true. They had it in Holland. In Leyden, they were penniless immigrants qualified for only the most menial of tasks. They worked 12 to 15 hours a day simply to subsist. Their life was so hard, no one was coming to join them. Their life was aging them prematurely that if they had to move again, it would be unable to do so. Their children were being drawn away by the lures of the world around them. Where would they go? They looked west. They looked to America. Despite the horrors of starving time in Virginia and the tales of savagery, and the death rate at Jamestown was over 50%, after much prayer and decision, they resolved to go. They resolved to go to America. They set sail on August the 5th, 1620. 3 days out, their ship Speedwell was in trouble. A week later, they tried again with the same result. They sold the Speedwell and obtained the Mayflower. Imagine this, folks. 102 pilgrims huddled together below deck in an area the size of a volleyball court. For 7 weeks in an ill-lighted, rolling, pitching, stinking inferno, all the while being harassed by unrepentant sailors. On November the 9th, the land came out of land. The cry came out, land ho. But they had arrived at the beginning of a New England winter. And then came the time of general sickness. Their bodies were weakened by their voyage and lack of nutrition. They began to succumb to illness. In December, 6 died. In January, 8 died. In February, on some days, 2 died. On February 21st, 4 died. On that day, according to Bradford, only 5 men were strong enough to care for the sick. In March, 13 died. They buried their dead at night so the Indians would not know how significant their losses were. 13 of 18 wives died. Only 3 families remained unbroken. 47 of 102 had passed away. The children fared better. Of 7 daughters, none had died. Of 13 sons, only 3. Bradford said the highest point of their week was Sunday worship, in which they gave thanks to a providential Lord. Before leaving the Mayflower, they wrote the Mayflower Compact, which marked the first time in recorded history that a free and equal people had voluntarily covenanted themselves together to create their own civil government. If I can read a portion of it, it reads as this: In the name of God, Amen. We whose names are underwritten, the loyal subjects of our dread sovereign, Lord King James, by the grace of God of Great Britain, France, Ireland, King, defender of the faith, have undertaken for the glory of God in the advancement of the Christian faith. That is why they came to America. They said it in the Mayflower Compact. A voyage to plant their first colony in the northern parts of Virginia by these presents do solemnly and mutually, in the presence of God and one another, covenant and combine ourselves together into a civil body politic for our better ordering and preservation and furtherance of the ends aforesaid, and by virtue hereof to enact, constitute, and frame such just and equal laws, ordinances, acts, constitutions, and office from time to time as shall be thought most meet and convenient for the general good of the colony, unto which we promise all due submission and obedience. It would be a century and a half before we would hear the resounding words, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. They began this journey of freedom. they began to establish a colony on the New England coast. They began their journey by kneeling on the deck at Delfshaven to ask God's blessing. They ended it by kneeling on the sands of Cape Cod to thank Him for His blessing. These noble people are part of our heritage. This Thanksgiving, Mr. Chairman and fellow citizens, let us give thanks and reflect upon what we will leave to those who come after us. I am thankful that I had the opportunity to be your county commissioner. I am thankful that the Lord is my Savior. I am thankful for this county. I am thankful for our staff. I am thankful for my family. And I am thankful that I've had the opportunity to serve and serve with the finest people I have ever known. I can only hope that as we think about this Thanksgiving, that we will have the humble spirit of those folks, and we will thank the Lord for all His blessings. And despite our disagreements, despite the many times that Ken Robertson was absolutely wrong and refused to admit it, despite the disagreements that we have, we still live in the greatest country in the world. We have so much to be thankful for. And I just thank you all for this opportunity. And as I said the other night at the Farm Bureau, the last words I will say in my final meeting are not my own. They're borrowed from Nathan the prophet. I will not sin by failing to pray for you. Thank you.
Well, I think we could have a resolution by acclamation that we have been blessed by the service of godly men and women who have done their utmost to discharge their duties honorably and with the best interest of the citizens of Iredell County at the uppermost of their thoughts and actions, and that we are indeed blessed to have had the caliber of leadership that they have brought to this dais. So thank you, both Ken and Steve.
Mr. Chairman, could I have a moment of personal privilege?
You're entitled.
I've served as county attorney for 32 years. During that time, I've had the privilege of serving with 25 or 30 of the most outstanding people I've ever known. All of them were, in one way or another, giants, but these two men here are giants among giants. Thank you for your service, man.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate you. Thank you, Mr. Pope. And as Commissioner Robertson mentioned, thank you for your service to this board. Many years. You started as the county attorney, I think, the first year I came to Statesville as a young, wet behind the ears lawyer trying to figure out which side was up. So thank you for your leadership and your mentorship. Okay, at this time, we have a resolution recognizing and honoring the Stony Point Volunteer Fire Department for achieving an improved insurance rating of Class 6. This resolution is sponsored by Commissioner Tommy Bowles. I would ask the county manager, Mr. Smith, if you could just share with the public a little bit about the importance of this accomplishment and how it impacts our citizens.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. This is something that that basically every homeowner in the county has something or some interest in, and as our fire departments, such as Stony Point, make gains in their ISO rating, which they've gone from a 7 to a 6, that is a direct result on residents through their homeowners insurance and saving them money. A lot of work has gone into these types of improvements and projects over time. Every department generally is striving to do this type of thing, but Stony Point has done that. And this is based on basically on an overall review of their department from A to Z. And in the case of Stony Point, there is no water, no public water generally in that area. When you don't have a lot of hydrants in an area, it's very difficult to do this, but they've done it anyway. So this is something definitely to be commended, and is in many cases, again, very difficult to achieve.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to read the resolution, unless I defer to. No, go right. Okay. This is a resolution of the Iredell County Board of Commissioners recognizing and honoring the Stony Point Volunteer Fire Department for achieving an improved insurance rating of Class 6. Whereas the North Carolina Office of the State Fire Marshal collects and evaluates information from communities in North Carolina on their structure fire suppression capabilities by evaluating local fire departments. And whereas the Office of the State Fire Marshal ratings are based on a variety of measures having to do with almost every aspect of a fire department, to include operations, training, apparatus, water supply, and communication capabilities. And whereas the availability of water alone accounts for 40% of the rating, making it very difficult for areas without widespread fire hydrant systems to attain good ratings. And whereas many residential and commercial insurance companies rely on the Office of State Fire Marshal ratings, and whereas the Office of State Fire Marshal uses a fire suppression rating schedule and a public protection classification to analyze data collected from the system, and whereas in the PCC system, lower is better, and whereas lower ratings mean savings to residential and commercial property owners, and whereas as of the last rating, the Stony Point Volunteer Fire Department area was a Class 7, and effective January 1st, 2017, the PPC rating is lowered to Class 6. Now, therefore, the Iredell County Board of Commissioners resolves to recognize the hard work and dedication of the men and women of the Stony Point Volunteer Fire Department and the consistently strong support of the community in achieving that improved rating to assist in lowering insurance costs to properties and owners throughout the area. Is there a motion to approve the resolution?
Mr. Chairman, I would entertain that motion.
Motion by Commissioner Bowles. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. The motion carries unanimously. This resolution is passed and approved by the Iredell County Board of Commissioners this 15th day of November, 2016. And I would ask Chief Scott Abernathy to come forward to accept the original, along with your board members and your deputy. Volunteers are the backbone of America's communities. We rely on volunteers to
Mr. Chairman, I just didn't mean to talk out of turn. Mr. Bowles said these guys narrowly missed a 5 by a fraction of a point.
Wow.
If you look at the availability of water and how vast that territory is between water points, that's pretty phenomenal. They did a great job.
They did a great job and have done so with probably one of the higher percentage of volunteers to individuals who pull full-time shifts that every fire department has to avail themselves of. But this is a traditional volunteer department that relies on folks leaving their Sunday meals and
Absolutely.
3 o'clock in the morning to get things done. At this time, we have a public hearing to consider proposed text amendments to the Land Development Code from the planning staff. And I would ask Mr. Matthew Todd to please summarize these changes for the benefit of the public.
Good evening to the board. We do have 3 different chapters of the Land Development Code that we're proposing some text amendments to. The planning board did vote 8-0 to recommend approval of all these text amendments. The first had to do with the sign chapter, and a couple years ago there was a directive from the Supreme Court that sign regulations needed to be content neutral. We have made the changes in our ordinance to hopefully achieve that with the help of Bill Pope and Lisa Valdez. And we also, for that chapter, we also increased the maximum sign height from 6 to 8 feet. That's kind of the extent of the changes for the sign chapter. Under the administration and enforcement chapter, we essentially, for lack of a better term, what I'd call it is we've established a statute of limitations on zoning setbacks for structures. The county's had countywide zoning since 1990. It's not uncommon for the county's Board of Adjustment to be faced with granting a variance on a house that's 20 years old. This provision will help speed that process up. If someone's purchasing a house, they find out the house is within the setback. If it's over 10 years old, they're not going to have to pay the $500 to go to the Board of Adjustment to get granted the variance. They would just fall into this section, and it's going to be considered a legal use. We've also set up to have a 1-foot allowance for discrepancies regarding setback measurements for the houses. And for those, we would not pursue enforcement if it's under 1 foot. Also, for the non-conforming chapter, we looked at trying to develop some flexibility and some consistency amongst the regulations. Right now, mobile homes, accessory buildings, stick-built homes are all treated differently. We're trying to treat them all the same from a regulation standpoint and give them all the same opportunity, essentially. Also trying to cut out some of the regulation that didn't make a lot of sense to us. A commercial building, if they want it to add on and they're non-conforming, the current code required that it be attached. So we were making a business build a breezeway in order to get around the regulation. Well, now, under what we've proposed, they don't need a full with building a breezeway. They're going to have to come through the approval process, which is this board, but they can actually do it without having to build a breezeway just because the code says it has to be attached. Also, there's a process for those non-conforming businesses to come through the Board of Adjustment for a change in kind of use. And again, that's a $500 fee. It's a month or 2 month long process. We're saying that can be handled at the staff level. There's a set of criteria we can look at, and we can make the call if they meet those criteria, and without having to send them through that lengthy process. That's essentially, in a nutshell, the changes that we've proposed. I should have mentioned this earlier. As far as the approval, there is the specific statement on the second page of the staff report that we would need to be read into the record, similar to the rezoning recommendations that we do. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Todd. Are there any questions or comments from commission members? Okay. I'll now open the public hearing. I do not have anyone that is signed up to be heard in this matter. I will canvass the audience and inquire if there's anyone that would like to be heard on this public hearing. Seeing and hearing none, I will close this public hearing and entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to commend our staff and our planning board for making it easier for citizens to live and do their business in Iredell County. I'd like to commend those two groups as well for making it easier for business to operate in Iredell County. We talk about economic development all the time, but this is one thing that we can do to help people and to help small business and therefore help our county. So with that said, sir, I would like to make a motion to approve the zoning text amendment and to make it a finding that the approval is consistent with the adoption of the 2030 Horizon Plan, and that said approval is reasonable and in the public's interest and furthers the goals of the 2030 Horizon Plan because it aims to create compliance with federal rulings, creates flexibility, and streamlines development procedures.
Motion by Commissioner Bowles. Before we vote, I'd just like to pile on to the comments that he made. I'll say, common sense is usually something that is in short supply when it comes to any regulatory scheme promulgated by any organization within government, often referred to as bureaucracies. Because simply it is in the nature of most bureaucracies to generate requirements to be able to justify their own workload and ask for more resources to execute that workload. They become, in essence, self-licking ice cream cones. And so I just want to commend our staff for, as Commissioner Bowles has said, trying to make things a little easier for residents and businesses and be able to avoid some of the regulatory requirements of paying for reviews and approvals and generating fees when they really don't produce benefit. There's not a cost-benefit ratio that passes muster. And I do want to thank the Planning Board for their review along with staff and their recommendation, and note that Commissioner-elect McNeely is stepping down as the chairman of the Planning Board, and so we are going to be fortunate to have his experience to be able to help in these zoning matters going forward. So any further comments? Okay. A motion has been made. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much, Mr. Todd. Okay. We have a number of administrative matters under item 8 that were reviewed at the pre-agenda meeting at 5:30, and all of those matters have been deemed appropriate for a consent agenda, and I would ask our county manager, Mr. Smith, to summarize those.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item number 1 is a request from the Department of Fire Services and Emergency Management for approval to release $21,115.50 in matching funds to the Iredell County Rescue Squad for the purchase of rescue equipment. And this is these funds are going to be matched dollar for dollar with an NC Department of Insurance grant. Item number 2 is a request from the Finance Department for approval of budget amendment number 8 to record the 2016 limited obligation refunding bond, which will result in over $10 million in cash flow savings over the course of that debt. Item 3 is a request from the Finance Department to adopt a resolution in support of Project Sparrow to locate a manufacturing facility in Iredell County. Item 4 is a request from the Health Department for approval of budget amendment number 9 to use fund balance reserved for Medicaid max funds to purchase an electronic health record software and sign a 5-year contract with Cure MD. Item 5 is a request from Tax Administration for approval of the October refunds and releases. And 6 is a request for the approval of the minutes for November 1st, 2016.
Are there any comments? Is there a motion? Motion by Vice Chairman Norman to approve the consent agenda. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign. Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to item 9, which is announcement of vacancies occurring on boards and commissions. We have a number of vacancies to announce. Many of these have individuals serving that have agreed to continue for additional service in these committees, but in all cases, we would encourage members of the public to consider applying, and if you go on the Iredell County website, you will be able to get information about these different opportunities to serve. I will note that on the Board of Health, most of those positions are focused on having certain credentials or serving in positions within the medical field. So we have one announcement for the Animal Grievance Committee. We have 5 vacancies on the Advisory Committee for Home and Community Care Block Grant. We have 4 announcements for the Recreation Advisory Board, 3 announcements for the Zoning Board of Adjustment, 7 announcements for the Board of Health, and 1 announcement for the Planning Board. There is no action required on these announcements other than simply that they are made part of the record and made available to the public. At this time, item 10, appointments to boards and commissions. We have 1 appointment to the Personnel Advisory Committee. Mr. Eugene Cheek has agreed to serve again. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I would offer place in nomination Mr. Eugene B. Cheek for reappointment to the Personnel Advisory Committee. And if it pleases the chair, I would move we close the floor to nominations, appoint Mr. Cheek by acclamation.
Motion to appoint by acclamation made by Commissioner Johnson. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Motion passes. Unanimous. Okay. Is there any unfinished business to come before the board? Hearing none, move on to item 12, the public comment period. We have a number of folks that are availing themselves of the opportunity to share with the public and the board any discussion on any subject that their spirit moves them on. And we will start off, we'll just take them in order. First signed up is Mr. T.J. Johnson. And when you... And if we could take a 5-minute recess just before we get into the public comment period. Well, it's been about... So we're in recess for 5 minutes. Okay, we will resume from our recess. At this time, we have a public comment period, and I'm sorry, Mr. T.J. Johnson, halfway up, we took the recess. So if you will please come up to the podium, and if you'll please announce your name and your address, home address, for the record, for everyone that's signed up.
T.J. Johnson, 413 Walnut Tree Road, Statesville.
Okay.
Gentlemen, I come tonight to give thanks to Mr. Ken Robertson and Mr. Steve Johnson. The dedication and service these gentlemen have provided for Iredell County, the citizens, is admirable to say the least. Ken, you say also thank you for your service to our country, Ken. That's the sacrifices. As I was on my way down here, I was speaking with Congressman Mark Meadows, and I told him what I was coming to do tonight. And I asked him, what could you say to two men that have sacrificed that much for government as well as military, including you, Ken? He said, there's not really any amount of words you can tell these gentlemen that go past thank you and that you're blessed to have them. And for the services you guys have provided, the sacrifices, time away from your family, I don't think any of the citizens of Iredell County can thank you enough for what you've done, being good stewards of our tax dollars. Ken, you've served admirably for 12 years. Thank you. Steve Johnson, 22 years is a long time to be on the Board of Commissioners. You've invested a wealth of time, knowledge, and a lot of ad-libs in there that people have enjoyed hearing through the years. When I first noticed I had political aspirations, I was standing in the back of this room, and Steve come through the door, stuck out his hand out and said, I'm Steve Johnson, and I'd like to talk to you. From then on out, I've been elected to a position on the Central Committee down in Raleigh, and I have the pleasure of serving 27 counties in North Carolina. And I can say out of the 27 counties I represent in Raleigh that, Steve, you've provided Iredell County some of the finest leadership that I have seen from anyone out of those 27 counties. The knowledge you have of government and economics is beyond measure. And I just wanted to come down tonight to thank you on behalf of myself and on behalf of the position I serve as Vice President of the North Carolina Federation of Republican Men. We recognize you as one of the great leaders in the state of North Carolina, and we'd like to thank you. You're revered by people that you don't even know you're revered by. And we would just like to humbly thank you for what you've done for Iredell County for so many years. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. And, Mr. Brian Shoemaker.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, good evening. I had a few prepared remarks to make, but most everything I was going to say, you guys already covered tonight, so I'll keep it brief. Mr. Robertson, I appreciate your service to our country and your service to this board. The first time I met you, and you probably don't remember it, but you were the chairman of the Iredell County Republican Party, and it was the first Lincoln Reagan Day dinner then that I attended. And I was probably late teens, early 20s, somewhere in that range. And I was really interested in getting involved with the Republican Party. And at that age, I think I was still in high school, it's hard to be a conservative. And you made it a little bit easier because at that dinner, I remember you stuck out your hand and you said, I'm Ken Robertson, pleased to meet you. Thank you for being here. We want you to be a part of this. And I always appreciated that. And I really appreciate your service to the Iredell County Republican Party. That position is probably more difficult than being on this board, so thank you. You and I have had several conversations through the years, mainly related to my time on the Board of Education. I appreciate your willingness to listen to my concerns and always appreciated your counsel and feedback on dealing with financial matters with the county. Mr. Johnson, again, thank you for your service to the county. It's unfortunate that some folks won't appreciate or don't recognize what you've done for the county. The AAA bond rating was mentioned tonight. you and the board had a lot to do with that. You've always been somebody that I've admired and appreciated. When I was on the school board, you also provided a great amount of counsel. You always took the time to listen to me. You helped deal with some difficult situations throughout the 4 years I was on the school board. And you've always answered the phone, not just for me, but all the people of this county. You've always taken the time to speak to everyone, let them know you cared. So I'll close with that. Just one other thing I'd like to mention. Mr. Robertson, I know you in particular, there's nobody else, you and Mr. Johnson, I'll say it about both of you, that takes this job as seriously as you have. I know that you study your board packet. I know that you take that information home. You go over it and over and over it. It's easy to get elected to a position, but it's hard to actually take it seriously and do the job, and you gentlemen have, and I thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shoemaker. John Kindley.
My name is John Kinley. I live at 157 Old Arbor Way Road, Mooresville, North Carolina. And I thank the whole board here and for all you do and the service that you do. And I thank the past boards. I first walked in here about 36 years ago to my first zoning meeting. I'm in the real estate business. And that predates Mr. Pope here. And I've seen a number of boards over the years and gone in front of them. And most of the times we've prevailed in our zoning meetings. We've seen, the board has seen the wisdom of the projects that we've worked on and the growth of Iredell County. I want to thank Mr. Robertson for his service leaving tonight, and haven't always agreed with all the people up here, but I don't think that's ever going to happen. I think that when you serve on a board, what you do is do your best, do what you think's right. If you get elected, re-elected, great. If you don't, hold your head up and walk out. And then admit what you've done. Stick with what you've done. But Steve and I go back when he was first running. I met him at a barbecue over there off near exit 42. And it was the first run. And we sat there and ate a barbecue sandwich together, and he said he was going to run. And so I've known Steve from since then, and I consider Steve a friend. And I know that Steve is a friend of the citizens of Iredell County. And he's a voice for the voiceless. You know, the little old lady that's on a fixed income that can't afford to, when taxes get raised, it hurts those people more than anybody. But Steve's also been a visionary. Steve realized that business is the engine that runs everything. If the businesses aren't going and moving and people aren't making money and creating jobs, no one benefits. But Steve also learned early on about balanced growth and his vision of earmarking properties out there in the county to make sure that they can be used for their highest and best use. And once they're gone, they're gone. And once neighborhoods move in and you put in your own opposition, it's very hard to get things reasoned. It's hard to sit up here when you have 300 people that are irate about a zoning issue that you sit up there in dollars and cents. It makes makes sense to do it. But Steve's also been very innovative. He's always worked for you. If you come to him with something, he said, well, he might not have an answer then, but he thinks about it. And he tries to figure out a way to get things done. He just doesn't say no, and he might not say yes, but he thinks about it, and he studies it, and he comes up with a way that will work. And a lot of times that's the funding is the hard part, and it's not a plan until you have the funding. So I really appreciate Steve, and I call him a friend, and wish him well, and we'll still be looking for his advice and wisdom. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kinley. Mark Cash.
Mark Cash, 232 Lowray Lane, Statesville, North Carolina. Chairman, members of the board, thank you for the opportunity to come before you tonight. Just got a few comments I'd like to make. To Mr. Robertson, thank you for your time on this board. Thank you for your service to this country. Both of those are admirable things. Sure, you could have found a whole lot more exciting things to do at times, but thank you for serving the county. Hope you find a lot of good things to do with your newfound spare time. Also want to congratulate the winners of last Tuesday's elections. I want to congratulate Tommy Bowles. You were the highest vote getter. That shows the county has a lot of, belief that you're doing a good job, and we're glad you're back. I also want to congratulate Jeff McNeely and Gene Howe. They persevered and made it through, and we've got an all-Republican board again, and that's a good thing. Also excited about the outcome of the presidential election. I see, a lot of great things are going to happen. We're going to have a little patience. I don't see anything happen really fast, but I think that things will turn around. And the good thing about our county with low tax rates and a good business climate, business advice, I really believe that industry will run to us because of the way this county's been kept, run so fiscally conservative. The county owes a debt of gratitude to this board as well as its predecessors. There are way too many to mention, but there's a couple that I would like to mention. Those are Godfrey Williams and David Boone. They were fine members of this board, and I'd like to thank them for their service and think they look down on us and keep a watchful eye on us. I also like to thank Larry Hedrick, who's a personal friend of mine. He was a leader of this board and served this county well for a number of years. Commissioner Steve Johnson has served the board for 22 years. Through those years, there's been some good times and some bad times. He's always worked to keep Iredell County on a firm foundation financially while providing all the necessary services for the citizens of this county. Known Steve personally for 30 years. He's a great man and a great friend. Steve has a servant's heart. He's always been there for his customers at the parts store and has always been available to the people in search of advice. County business, no matter what, he's always there for you. When thinking of Steve, I think of 1 Corinthians 10:24. It says, "Let no man seek his own, but every man another's wealth." That, to me, reminds me of Steve. He's always looking out for others. He'll look out for others way before he looks after his own interests sometimes. Steve's going to be missed. I hope someone will be that person that everyone in the county can go to. Because Lord knows I've been in that parts store and seen them running at him. So he had nowhere to hide. He should have put in an extra back door. But Iredell Taxpayers Advocacy PAC has got a little award we would like to present to Steve. It's the Taxpayers Friend Award. And I would like to have Brian Shoemaker, John Kinley, and would like to present this award to him if that would be all right, Mr. Chairman.
Absolutely. Please come forward. Steve, would you like to?
Taxpayers Friend presented to Commissioner Stephen D. Johnson for his years of public service and personal sacrifice, always working for the citizens'
Thank you, Mr. Cash.
Yeah, I'll say a little something. I wasn't expecting that, and I appreciate it. Alexis de Tocqueville said, America shall remain great until the people learn that they can vote for themselves from the public treasury largesse. We came pretty close to discovering that in this last presidential election. Let me say that in my 22 years of public office, I've been unashamedly a conservative. And let me tell you why I'm a conservative. I'm a conservative because I believe in economic growth is the best way to pay the government's bills. I do not believe that higher taxes is the best way to pay the government's bills. If you do not believe me, then all you need to do is look at revenue trends of Iredell County in periods of economic growth as compared to economic stagnation. And in the periods of economic stagnation, at a 10% tax increase of those revenues and compounded over time, as compared to the revenue of growth in the times of an expanding economy. And what you will find, the revenue that an expanding economy will throw off to the county will dwarf any tax increase over time. In fact, at the end of about halfway through the next cycle, if it's historical averages as compared to a 10% tax increase, you would have to raise taxes again to catch back up. Folks, we have gone through a long period now where Americans have been led to believe that an economy is a zero-sum game, that for one group of people to benefit, it has to come at the expense of another group of people. That is the biggest economic lie that has ever been propagated in human thought. It is simply not true. The answer is economic freedom. If you allow people to do with their money what they will do as compared to taking it from them and spending it on their behalf, they will create unimaginable wealth and prosperity. Show me one time in the course of human history where a group of people have ever borrowed and taxed themselves into prosperity. It does not exist. It has never existed. And it cannot exist. If you believe that government can create wealth, then you believe that something can be created from nothing, because government does not create wealth. I am not against the government. God ordained government before he ordained a lot of institutions. And he did it because he knew man's heart, and government must exist to restrain evil. But when that government begins to do for things that people ought to do for themselves, then people begin to lose their freedom. And the further that decision-making process becomes further and further away from the people, the less effective that government program becomes, and the less free people become. And we see that all across the political spectrum. And what you're going to witness over the next couple of years, you're going to witness marginal and corporate income tax cuts. And a lot of people are going to say 6 months and 12 months from now, it's not working, it's not working, it's not working. It takes about 18 months to 2 years from the time you see a change in fiscal policy till you begin to see the results of that fiscal policy. And we have followed an economic philosophy where we were in pursuit of economic equality. And we're about to begin to pursue economic freedom and economic growth. And in 2 years, you will see this economy begin to grow again. I want to encourage this board, you got 2 more tough years. But then granny grab your girdle, this thing's going to take off like a rocket. So be ready. I would caution Mr. Trump, if I was his economic advisor tonight, not to get too crazy on an infrastructure thing. You get this economy growing, it'll throw off enough money, that infrastructure problem will take care of itself. And But I'll say this, and I don't mean to be critical when I said this, but Winston Churchill said if a man is not liberal when he's 20, he lacks a heart. If he's not conservative by the time he's 30, he lacks a brain. I want you to think every time somebody begins to tug on your heartstrings and say that as a conservative you're incompassionate or you're uncaring. Compassionate, folks, is spending your own money to help someone. Taking someone else's money and spending it to help someone else is not compassionate. It's demagogic. It's insincere. Take your own money. Use your own talents to help people. Thereby, you will best help to preserve your freedom and the freedom of your fellow man. Our whole economy is based on freedom. And what we have, and for you young guys sitting there tonight, believe in freedom because it works. Believe in free market economics because it has done more to lift the general welfare of everyone. Under free market capitalism, you have seen the most efficient and fairest distribution of wealth that has ever existed in the history of the world. And those people who are on the left will tell you that it's not so. But it is. But they speak of a world that does not exist. They speak of a utopia. You live in a fallen world. It's imperfect. But America is not perfect, but we've done it better than anybody else has ever done it. And we're the freest people today because we have pursued economic freedom over economic equality. And if we continue to go in that path, you will continue to be prosperous. I want to encourage all of you. I don't know what you're going to study in school. Economics is called the mundane science. I want to tell you to consider a career in studying that very thing. There are a lot of economists today. In your generation, there are not many good ones. At state universities all across this land, they're taught the Keynesian model of economics. Keynesianism is a lie. It has never worked. Believe in freedom. Believe in free markets. If you will lose your economic freedom, young men, before you will ever lose your political freedom. And don't let them take it from you. Be kind to everyone, but stand on the side of freedom every time. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. And just one quote from de Tocqueville.
Yeah, just one.
A late night.
Yes.
Well,
you can apply for your continuing education credit at Mitchell Community College.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Rothschild says, give me the power to print money. I don't care who makes the laws. We've been printing money like fools. Thank you.
Okay, now we'll now ask Mr. James Hogan.
Good evening, a late night indeed. My name is James Hogan. I reside at 303 Heritage Circle in Statesville, North Carolina. I have a slightly different idea about the greatest lie in human thought. That was when the serpent said to the woman in the Garden of Eden, "Ye shall not surely die, for God doth know that in the day ye eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened, and you shall be as gods, knowing good from evil." The power of the gods and the power of the opportunity to lead people is surely a tempting thing. And in the spirit of humility and in the spirit of public service, and on behalf of our humble group known as Our Schools First, we did want to take a moment to honor a real friend and champion for Iredell County children, Commissioner Ken Robertson. When Ken Robertson was first sworn in as an Iredell County Commissioner in 2004, things around here looked a lot different. Interstate 77 had fewer exits. Iredell County had nearly 40,000 fewer residents. School choice didn't exist, and nobody carried iPhones because they hadn't been invented. Now, while none of these things in particular is under the jurisdiction of an Iredell County commissioner, Ken Robertson has helped guarantee that our county was positioned for success as Iredell and North Carolina and our world grew larger and larger. As an officer in the United States Army, Ken Robertson developed a disciplined mind that depended on facts. Quote, "Not making a decision is seen as making a very bad decision by default," Robertson said in a 2013 interview. "I prefer to be part of the decision-making process because I know my decisions will be based upon facts and experience and not wishful thinking." Now, Iredell County constituents of all stripes have always been assured fair representation by Commissioner Robertson. He's never shied away from discussing tough issues with people who have disagreed with him. But as Robertson said, quote, "What I dislike is trying to have such a discussion with someone who has failed to educate themselves with facts or failed to consider indirect ramifications." Robertson's fiscal conservatism has served Iredell's taxpayers well over his 12 years in office. Indeed, Iredell has maintained the lowest property tax rate in our region, and Commissioner Robertson's wise stewardship has enabled our county to sufficiently weather the 2009 global recession. Robertson's concern for the bottom line kept Iredell free of unmanageable debt. But that doesn't mean that Commissioner Robertson hasn't pushed for county investments when they make good conservative sense. During Robertson's tenure, Iredell voters have approved 2 education bond referenda, including the 2014 bond decision that delivered $131 million to Iredell, Statesville, and Mooresville graded schools and Mitchell Community College. Robertson was an early champion of the effort and introduced the motion for the bond to be placed on the ballot and later urged voters to ensure its passage. Not every county commissioner could attend the Cool Spring Elementary School groundbreaking ceremony in the winter of 2015, but Ken Robertson was there, shovel in hand, ready to begin construction on a desperately needed upgrade for students who had suffered the previous winter in a building without heat. This past fall, when the new building was completed on time and under budget, our county's wise investment was tangibly realized, and the Cool Spring community moved into a schoolhouse they can be proud of for years to come. And I might add, we've still got the lowest tax rate in our region. Robertson has worked with our state legislative delegation to ask for more per pupil funding, pushing Raleigh to level the playing field for state appropriations. And listening to educators and common sense wisdom, Ken Robertson voted against a county policy that would have armed public school teachers. In his dozen years on the county commissioner, as a county commissioner, Ken Robertson has always understood that most issues, especially those concerning public education funding, are complex matters requiring a discerning approach to governance. Says Robertson, quote, "A favorite quote of mine is, for every complex problem, there is an answer that is clear, simple, and wrong." Our Schools First is grateful that Commissioner Robertson has spent his time on the board endeavoring to find the right answers and not just the easy ones, working to promote our community's prosperity, even when it meant taking on manageable debt. Our county school children, the young men and women who will become our next generation of leaders, are in a better position to realize their potential thanks to Ken Robertson's remarkable tenure. We all wish him the very best as he returns to a full life away from public service, and we certainly express our utmost appreciation for your work and sacrifice to Iredell County. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hogan. Any comments?
Is that it?
I just have one more signed up. Mr. Gene Howe, Commissioner-elect.
Good evening. I'll be brief. Gene Houp, 615 Glendale Drive, Statesville, North Carolina. Here twofold. Our registered deeds and GOP Chairman Ron Duck Wyatt could not be here tonight. Wanted to apologize. But on his behalf and our GOP and all of our citizens of Iredell County, he wanted to congratulate both you gentlemen for your service to our county and our taxpayers. Wish you well, wish your families well, and hope you enjoy whatever endeavors you pursue. As Gene Houp, I'm here. I've had the honor and privilege of serving with both you gentlemen, sitting in the seats you're sitting in. Until you've sat in those seats, you don't understand sometimes the complexities and challenges that we face sitting in those seats and understanding all the facts that go with that job. I want to call both of you a friend, a colleague, and Christian brothers, and I want to wish you well in whatever endeavor you do. May God bless you and your families. It was an honor to serve with you. I think I can speak for Mr. McNeely, who's also a commissioner-elect also. We will work as passionately as you guys did to fill your shoes on behalf of the citizens of Iredell County, working with the other three gentlemen here, and look forward to that. And again, thank you for your service and your service to the country. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Houp.
If I could just make one comment, and I'll be brief. Because several people have talked about education, and I don't think what I'm going to say is controversial at all. It's amazing. When we go to a store and we're going to spend a certain amount of money, let's say we're going to buy cookies, we always want to get the most cookies that we can for our money. Okay? And if we go to buy a car, we want to get the best car, the most car for our money. And one of the things and I'll say this to the parents and to the students out in Iredell County. This board, and I appreciate you using my name, and thank you very much, but this board and in previous boards, we have spent a tremendous amount of money building facilities to make educational opportunities available to our students. Our schools, our school systems, plural, have created numerous programs where students can take a wide variety of classes that can help them prepare for either college or the job market. All of these things are available. And they're available because of a lot of the work that we did and that the Board of Educations have done. If I can, my last thing will be a plea. Students, take advantage of these opportunities that we have funded for you. Because if you don't take advantage of them, at some point people will say it's not worth the money. Parents, make your kid, if your children are not motivated or mature enough to understand that they need to take advantage of those educational opportunities, then interject yourself and make them sign up for it. They need to study. Let's get the most use out of our educational dollars so that when our economic recruitment team goes to recruit businesses, we can say, look at the pipeline of students that we have coming that can fill your workforce. So my plea is I would say that we collectively, we as a board, we spend over half of our budget on education. Take advantage of it. You can enroll in high school and get college credit. Take advantage of it at Mitchell College. You can enroll in courses that aren't some of the boring ones that we took, that have an awful lot to do with trades and ways that when you graduate you can make a living. Take advantage of it. Don't be the consumer that goes to the store and tries to buy the bag with the least amount of chips for the same amount of money. Go and try to take advantage of these opportunities that we funded for you. If you do that, you make me a very happy man. Thank you all for your kind words to both of us. I really appreciate it. Everybody up here has worked hard. It's my honor being with you. Thanks so much.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Robertson. Any further comments? Well, I will close things down in terms of comments with a few ones. I promise to be, as Bill O'Reilly said, counsels to be pithy. So, some of the discussions you've heard have dealt with the commitment on behalf of this conservative Republican board to maintain the lowest tax rate of any county that we are contiguous to, and yet also to provide the services that the citizens of this county expect. And as you've heard also this evening, that the staff of the county departments, the over 900 employees, work extremely hard to deliver those services effectively, efficiently, and with an eye towards customer service. And you saw an example of that earlier today in terms of the changes in some of the sign ordinances and setbacks and all. And that's a workforce that has internalized Iredell County values because they're citizens and they live here too, and they have to pay taxes. So I agree wholeheartedly that the more dollars that we can keep in our own pockets, that we are better judges of how to spend those funds that are hard-earned than is government. I will also say that maintaining that tax rate, it's simple algebra. You know, the tax rate in the county times the assessed tax value of properties equals your revenue stream. And it's that balanced economic growth that Commissioner Johnson referenced that helps us to achieve a healthy bottom line in terms of revenues while being able to maintain a low tax rate. If you grow the tax base, then you can continue to deliver services efficiently and effectively and not break the bank and not necessarily have to borrow money, which many local governments have gotten themselves in a lot of trouble doing. But in today's environment, in terms of developing that economic base, basically our employer base, whether it's industry or whether it's commercial, that the primary driver of whether someone chooses to open a business and move to Iredell County today is the consideration of available human capital. That is a workforce that is educated and able to use technology to be able to work as a member of a team, to be able to be adaptive and creative, problem solver, and to have the right values and work ethic. Just simply showing up on time to work, putting in an honest 8 hours, or whatever the expectation is. And so developing that workforce is critical to economic development, and that workforce development is squarely in the province of our educators, whether they are K through 12 or they are Mitchell Community College, which is our secret weapon in this county in terms of developing skill sets and certifications to take kids from high school, where many have not had an opportunity to ever have a job, to be able to equip them to be able to have the kind of income that enables them to be able to do what every parent wants for their children, which is to have a better life than the preceding generation, a better lifestyle. And the key to that is education. But it means we have to align those educational outputs with the desired outcomes in the business community. And so we're not there completely yet, but we're making great strides, as Commissioner Robertson referred to, the multiple opportunities that children in our school system, young adults have to be able to choose coursework that inspires something inside of them that they can be passionate about. That's the key to getting kids to say, well, I see the relevance of all this. And that involves getting the educators out into business to see what's going on. It involves getting business into the schools to be able to say, this is what we need in the pipeline, so that these kids, these young adults can get out, and if they're not going to college, which, you know, our school systems have always prepared young men and women to go to college. But there's a group that, if they weren't going to college, just sort of fell off the grid. They just were lost in the shuffle. We have to focus on those to be able to create the levels of income necessary to achieve their financial goals and objectives, as well as achieve our community goals of having better places to eat and to shop, because retail follows disposable income. If you don't have sufficient disposable income in terms of earning capacity, and it's been said before that I know Commissioner Johnson mentioned this, that prospective restaurants, prospective retail establishments, they have a formula that determines whether they open up in any given community. And it's based on, well, how many people are there and how much disposable income do they have. And if we're going to create the disposable income, we need to have $20 an hour jobs. And you don't get $20 an hour jobs just walking out of high school with just skating through or not getting out of high school at all. So we've got to align those two systems. They are joined at the hip. And as we increase that economic activity, we can maintain that low tax rate and keep more of that economic benefit in our own pockets. Finally, I'll just say, and Commissioner Johnson quoted one of my favorite comments from Winston Churchill, but I'll pass on another. And we've seen in this last election cycle, in stark relief, a vision of a socialist America versus a vision of a capitalist America. And you know, human beings haven't changed a lot, you know, and we keep relearning lessons from the past. You know, if you don't learn from the history of the past, you're condemned to repeat it. And one thing that Winston Churchill said, and I'll paraphrase, relative to capitalism, socialism, and the relative benefits, he said the inherent vice of capitalism is the unequal distribution of blessings. The inherent virtue of socialism is the equal distribution of misery. So, with that, anything further?
No, thank you.
Commissioner?
Oh, excuse these kids so they go home and go to bed.
Well, we are going to, when Marvin speaks, everyone listens. So, I've got my marching orders. At this time, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Adjourn.